Sometimes the better course of business is to step back and eat it. Sometimes the better course of business for a long-term relationship with a client is to step back and say, you know what? I can see why you feel that way. Let me make it right with you.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Dustin Harris hanging out in my new studios. This is the first episode, minisode, if you will, from my new studios. I closed down 2 of my offices recently. My appraisal office, we're all working from home now. That looks like will be the case long term, and changed office locations for my podcasting, my appraisal coaching. And this is the first episode, so I'd love to hear back from you. Tell me how the sound is. I've got the sound panels up. It's very cozy. I'm going to call it my broom closet. It's very small, which is perfect for what I do. I want to give you an analogy today, and this is an analogy that I'm going to set it up with a story, but it really applies to so many parts of our lives. I want to pause here and remind you of a great company that also applies to all parts of your business. And that, of course, is ANOW Software. ANOW is a sponsor here, have been for a long time, but more importantly, they are a software that I use to manage every bit, every aspect, every corner, north, south, east, and west of my appraisal business. You should be as well. Check them out by going to anow.com. Again, it's ANOW.com. Well, folks, let me set this up with a true story. During the pandemic, we were asked to do a desktop. And we were asked to do a desktop from a particular vendor. And it was due to the shutdown order in Idaho. And we, of course, did everything that we possibly could to accommodate and get credible data. And just yesterday, I received an email from the lender. And this is what the email said. Quote, "We just got a complaint from our client in regards to the appraisal." Now, let me pause here and just say, whenever I hear or see the word complaint, I guess my heart beats a little bit and want to, read further and make sure that we didn't do anything stupid. We didn't in this case. It goes on to say, he advised that every photo except for the exteriors of the appraisal came from him, and that your company was unwilling to take the interior photos of his home. He's wondering if you'd be willing to partially refund him for this service. He believes it's unfair that he was charged X amount of dollars and had to provide all of the photos. Is this something you'd be willing to consider? Now, folks, anytime I get an email like this, I have to step back and say, okay, I know what my emotional reaction is going to be here. I can feel it already welling up. And then I need to step back and say, okay, let's take it on its merits. First of all, let's ask the question, did I do anything wrong? And the answer to this is no. As I already set it up, this was during COVID. We were instructed by the state of Idaho to stay home. We were instructed by our client that if that was the case, that we were to do exteriors and that the interior photos could come from a number of different places. One of those included the point of contact. And we used different things such as ANOW's walkthrough tool. Again, ANOW is a sponsor here. And ANOW, during the pandemic, well, they came up with a great tool that allowed the homeowner to walk through the property and take the proper pictures and answer the proper questions that, I'll just be honest with you, I know there was a lot of naysayers out there on social media. It was really a damn good product, is a damn good product. It did the job that I felt brought credible data. Now, it was geocoded, it was date stamped. You couldn't go to a neighbor's house and take a picture of their kitchen and pretend it's yours. I mean, there was a lot of different things going on here for the safety and security of the appraiser, and it's just a great tool. ANOW in general is an awesome tool. It is management software developed by appraisers for appraisers. And if you want to learn more about that or the walkthrough tool, check them out by going to anow.com. Again, it's anow.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. I started out the program reading you an email from a lender that basically is asking for a partial refund, and they are simply directing the request from their borrower, from their client, who thought it was unfair that we charged a full fee for our appraisal services. And we charged an appraisal fee based on a situation that was during the pandemic. And we did not walk through the property. Instead, we got exterior photos and we sent the ANOW tool to this individual. And I actually remember this. He kind of threw a fit on the phone, but finally, threw his hands up and said, that's fine, I'll go ahead and do that. It's one of those things that we had some data for, but not enough that I felt like we could do a credible report without a walkthrough and without current pictures. Now, this individual completed that process. I remember it being difficult for him. It was a lot of back and forth between me and the office. And really him in the office rather, and this comes to the point that a lot of times our clients, our customers, and in this case, the borrower, which is neither, by the way, just don't understand what it is that we do, don't understand what it is that we go through. And, I'll just be honest with you folks. During the pandemic, I did not reduce my fees one bit. And I'll tell you why. I had an inkling going into this that this would most likely not save us any time, any effort, any energy, any mental stress to have the individual, the point of contact, walk through the house. I had an inkling, and my inkling turned out to be correct, that these were just as hard, if not more difficult, than a typical appraisal. In other words, it would have been easier for me to go out to the house, even with drive time included, walk through these properties, and then get the data that I need. We had so much back and forth, including this individual, who just don't know how to use technology. And furthermore, the amount of assumptions that we needed to make and determinations that we needed to make to know whether or not we had credible data. By the way, we turned down several assignments during the pandemic, and I talk as if the pandemic's over, but I'm talking about when it was hot and heavy and we had a shutdown order here in Idaho. And frankly, it just did not fit into our scope of work, our typical way that we do things. I have a very systemized way of doing things in my appraisal office. Every appraisal is unique, but the process that we go through from step one or from step A to step Z is very systemized. And sending out a survey, even though ANOW made it very, very easy for us, just didn't fit into that. Now, after several weeks, we got up to speed and we were able to handle it pretty quickly, but I'll tell you, the amount of back and forth trying to decipher, okay, is this a COVID 2055? Is this a COVID desktop 1004? Is this an exterior 1004? How much did we charge for this? Do we have credible data? I'm telling you, folks, it was easier for me to go through the property. Now, in this case, I got back with the client and I very professionally thanked them for their email. I gave them some empathy and said, I understand why the point of contact is upset. I might be upset as well, but let me help you understand the process. And we went through some education. By the way, folks, during a customer service situation, there are times when I step back, and even if I know that I'm in the right, sometimes the better course of business is to step back and eat it. Sometimes the better course of business for a long-term relationship with a client is to step back and say, you know what? I can see why you feel that way. Let me make it right with you. And I do that on occasion. In this case, the better course of action for me was education. And we sent back a fairly lengthy email, very professionally written, very kind, very uplifting, very positive, and basically said, listen, we understand your client's concern. Let me help them understand the situation. And basically described how we did as much, if not more, work with this particular appraisal than we would with a normal walkthrough. Now, I posted this particular paragraph that I just read to you on my All-Star. I love my All-Star team. They're so awesome. And just great comments back. Great discussion ensued about, and by the way, I'd already sent off the response when I posted this. I wasn't necessarily looking for feedback, but I was looking for some education and each of us being able to share our comments about this particular situation. Now, just to be clear, I kept everything professional, kept everything confidential. There were no addresses shared. There were no names. There were no company names, no anything, right? Just the stuff that I just read to you was posted on my private Facebook group for the All-Star team. And we had some great comments ensue. And then there was an analogy. And again, I've heard this analogy before. It is a great analogy for so many things. Well, let me just read it to you. This came from an all-star team member, a dream team member, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Jarrett, wrote, and I'll just read it word for word. A giant ship engine failed. The ship owner tried one expert after another, but none of them could figure out how to fix the engine. Then they brought in an old man who had been fixing ships since he was young. He carried a large bag of tools with him, and when he arrived, he immediately went to work. He inspected the engine very carefully, top to bottom. 2 of the ship's owners were there watching this man, hoping he would know what to do. After looking things over, the old man reached into his bag and pulled out a small hammer. He gently tapped something. Instantly, the engine lurched into life. He carefully put his hammer away. The engine was fixed. A week later, the owners received a bill from the old man for $10,000. What? The owners exclaimed. He hardly did anything. So they wrote the old man a note saying, please send us an itemized bill. The man sent the bill that read, tapping with hammer, $2. Knowing where to tap, $9,998. Folks, thank you for joining me today. If you want to be a part of the All-Star team, you can still do it for free. All you have to do is go to the website, theappraisercoach.com, click on memberships, and type in free 30 All-Star. That's FREE, all caps, 30, All-Star, all caps, all one word, free 30 All-Star. Would love to have you be a great part of this group who have conversations every day about relevant things in your life. Thank you for joining me, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.